few days ago, I received an attempt to see what I could build with enfornax. So I thought I would give it my best shot. So Skittily, this deck is for you. Today, we'll be taking a look at enfornax beatdown. Starting off the deck is 2 copies of enfornax. Enfornax is a 4/7 fire and wind elestral that says you can expend 1 wind in order to return an opponent's card to their hand. When you cast an elestral or rune with at least fire or wind spirit, you can give this enfornax +2 attack until the end phase. One thing to know is that you don't necessarily have to cast an elestral or rune that is actively a fire or wind elestral, you just have to utilize a fire or wind spirit in order to do so. So playing omni counter runes or playing misenchanted elestrals will also work towards his ability. The second thing to point out is the fact that this dude has a very large butt that you can easily just sit behind and expend a wind once per turn in order to bounce a card back to hand while you generate advantage on the board. The next Celestial we'll be playing is 3 copies of Galaxair. Galaxair is a 3/4 wind Elestral that says you can target an Elestral and swap its attack and defense until the end phase. Galaxair is extremely strong right now for several reasons. 1, Astrabid is everywhere, and this deals with Astrabid, allowing Galaxair to walk over it by swapping its stats, and also any other Elestral you might have on the board can also walk over it by using Galaxair's ability. Another thing is that Galaxy is very popular right now, so Galaxair is an Elestral that can deal with the Galaxy. And then the third reason is enfornax does have that big behind that you can easily utilize Galaxair to swap its stats and make it a large attacker without utilizing its secondary ability. So Galaxair is an extremely strong card in this deck, and I would always play 3 of it. Our next Celestial is 3 copies of Sorlet. Sorlet does pretty much everything Galaxair does, except for swapping your own Elestral's stat lines. However, Sorlet has a 5 attack body, so Sorlet also works a little bit better without having to fully utilize its ability, so you can also misenchant this Sorlet to play around stuff like Tsunami, whereas Galaxair always has to be properly enchanted. We're also playing 3 copies of Toxiswarm. Toxiswarm is a 4/1 wind Elestral that says when this Toxiswarm receives 1 or more wind spirit, your opponent must expend 1. Toxiswarm is extremely strong due to the fact that it will always count as a 2-for-1, since its effect will burn them for 1 and then they have to spend a minimum of 1 spirit to deal with this Toxiswarm. I personally always like playing burn cards like this, and in a deck like this where you can also play Toxiswarm and then boost your enfornax while burning them for 1, I find to be extremely useful. The next Celestial is my personal favorite in the deck, with 2 copies of Warmite. Warmite is a 3/1 fire Elestral that says you can target an opponent's Elestral and give it -4 attack until the end phase. Warmite is extremely strong in itself, becoming a 7 attacker with its ability. If you have the ability to pair it with Zeus, Warmite can become a 10 attacker, which is extremely nuts. There's very few things in this game that get over 10 attack, and all of them are pretty much 3 drops. So the fact that Warmite can easily take out a 3-drop Elestral in itself with a Zeus is extremely strong. Let alone the ability to play around cards like Altar of Stars if your opponent has a defense position Elestral by easily subtracting their attack and then attacking over it to ensure that they can't change the position and kill your Warmite. This card is extremely strong, and if you haven't already, I would recommend you start playing with it. And of course, since we're playing fire, we're going to be playing our 1 allotted Lavalith that we're allowed to play. Lavalith is a 6/4 2-drop Elestral that says this Lavalith can be normal cast with 2 fire spirits if an opponent has at least 2 or more enchanting spirits than you do. When you cast this Lavalith, you can target and destroy a rune. This is extremely strong for allowing you to come back from bad situations where you can easily just drop down a big guy, destroy their one and only rune that's being set at the moment, and then beat over whatever they have on the board. Not only that, you don't have to wait to be behind in this deck. With the fact that we're playing the Warmite, you can easily just utilize the Warmite to ascend into your Lavalith and then utilize its effect that way. Lavalith is so strong that it's limited to 1, and the fact that we're able to just hard ascend into it sometimes is extremely strong. Next, we have 3 copies of the most bannable bunny, Astro Rabbit. This thing is just a menace at this point that should have been taken care of a long time ago. The ability to just sit on itself and gain card advantage by continually re-enchanting it, looking at the top 3 and picking the one that's the best for this situation is extremely broken, so we're always going to be playing 3 until it's actively dealt with. And the last Celestial in the deck is 1 copy of Elechick. Elechick is a 4/1 Thunder Celestial that says when you normal cast this Elechick, you can search your deck for a Divine Rune and add it to hand. Now, if you'll notice, a lot of our Celestials have somewhat of a smaller stat line, even though they have very good abilities to pair with them. So in order to consistently make sure we can win combat, we'll be playing Zeus, and Elechick will help us find our copies of Zeus. To start off our runes, we have 2 copies of the previously mentioned Zeus. Now, we're playing Zeus because it is literally just the best Divine Rune in the entire game. Ask anybody and they'll tell you. Zeus's ability to allow not just one Elestral, but literally every single one of your Elestrals to walk over the targeted Elestral in combat is extremely strong, and no other Divine holds a candle to it right now. Honestly, in my opinion, the next closest is either Demeter or Artemis, and the only reason I say Artemis is because Artemis has the ability to shut off Zeus. To pair with our Zeus, we'll be running 2 copies of Cryoblast. Cryoblast is a 1-cost Frost Invoke rune that says target an Elestral that's not Frost Enchanted until the end phase, give it -2 defense, and when that Elestral has 0 defense, you must destroy it. So right now in a 5-space meta where a lot of their attacks are high but their defenses are low, Cryoblast essentially works as a hard removal spell. But if you're able to pair it up with Zeus, anything under 5 defense will die, which is pretty much everything in the entire meta, so Cryoblast turns out to be an oddly colored Earthquake in this fashion. Not only that, but if you remember, Galaxair changes stat lines, so you can always utilize this in tandem with Galaxair's effect to easily make the defense that you swapped lower and easily be able to hit over. We're also running 1 copy of Earthquake because unconditional removal is king, and as long as I have the spirit room for it, I will always be playing Earthquake in every single deck that I run. And the next best thing to unconditional removal is extremely cheap removal that allows you to come back. So we'll be playing 1 copy of Resting on Your Laurels for that exact reason. We're also running 1 copy of Hurricane. Now the main reason that we're running this is so our enfornax can easily stick to the board and utilize its ability and then clear an entire board state. What I mean by that is you Hurricane to clear all of the runes, put out your enfornax as a 6/7 attacker for the turn, utilize its ability to bounce one of their Elestrals back to hand, and then just beat over it with its stat line for the other Elestral that might be out. So with the Hurricane and enfornax, you can completely clear an opponent's board out of nowhere. And to finish off the Invoke runes, we have 3 copies of Ambrosia. There's no real reason to talk about this. Healing is just extremely busted because everything in this game takes your life to play. So we'll always be running 3 copies of Ambrosia until a better healing card comes along. And as for the counter runes, we're back on your typical 12. We've got 3 copies of Gorgon's Gaze to shut down literally anything that an opposing Celestial might think about doing. We've got 3 copies of Poison Tipped Arrow for the hard removal and the -2 attack to possibly save some of our Elestrals. We've got 3 copies of Shield of Achilles to bounce opposing elestrals that are not named Pharaohgeist back to hand. And we've got 3 copies of Tsunami to blank an entire battle phase unless they're water enchanted. Moving on to the Spirit deck, we have 1 copy of Flurmine for the Cryoblast. We've got 2 copies of Leviathan for the Tsunami and the Hurricane. We've got 2 copies of Terratlas for the Earthquake. We've got 4 copies of Zaptor for the Zeus, the Elechigs, and the Rabbits. We've got 4 copies of Bipyro for the fire portion of the deck. And we have 7 copies of Lycaris for the rest of the deck. What do you guys think of the deck? Let me know down in the comments below. And also let me know if there's anything that you're interested in seeing me building. If you want to see content like this, be sure to like and subscribe as I do post content daily. I hope you all have a good day, and peace.